Namo Namaha. Today is the 16th date of the program for youth on Sanatana Dharma. We shall continue the program with Shriman Nithinji after the Prarthana by Aditi. Aditi, Prarthana.
Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadhanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhir Bhautame Sada Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Sridharji, over to you.
Okay. Thank you. Namaste and good evening to everyone. Let me begin with a prayer. Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Shri Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Sarvamangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharanye Trayambake Gauri Narayani Namostute Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. So in the last two sessions, in the first session we saw what dharma is and what from where we get to have a valid knowledge, authentic knowledge about dharma, that is the Dharma Shastra. And in the yesterday's session, we had a very brief outline about the Dharma Shastric vision of society, socio-cultural vision, socio-cultural order, or rather we saw the ontological basis of the Dharmashastric vision of society. So ontological basis in the sense, what is the metaphysical, what is the ontological, or what is the philosophical basis of the vision. And we saw that how the purpose of the Dharmashastra is to make the society as well as the individuals, the members of the society, moksha oriented, swarga oriented, sukha oriented, punya oriented. So it is urging us to see beyond arthakama, not just become stuck in arthakama, because an isolated pursuit of arthakama eventually leads to sorrow, and nobody wants to be sad, nobody wants sorrow, nobody wants suffering in life, because everybody wants to be happy. Ultimately everybody wants happiness. Dharmashastra is indicating the right means to pursue that happiness, right means to attain that happiness, not just any happiness, but ultimate happiness, infinite and eternal happiness in the form of moksha, as well as a very exalted, though temporary, but exalted happiness in the form of swarga, so on and so forth. So in this quest, in this project, Dharmashastra project, in this process of how to enunciating the means for an individual to attain this ultimate happiness, it also gives a social vision, a socio-cultural vision, a vision for a society which is capable of facilitating each individual member of the society to attain that happiness. Now, it is very, very important to keep in mind that no individual is same. nobody within a family, for example, is same. We are all, the diversity is the very essence of this Srishti, this universe. Therefore, there cannot be one path to moksha. What we discussed yesterday about the roadmap is the broad roadmap with broad landmarks to reach there. That is common. But the actual path we take is different for each individual because we are at different stages in our journey. This is not the only life. We have been taking birth hundreds of thousand times before. We will be taking birth many times until moksha happens. So each of us are at very different stage of our journey. Therefore, there cannot be one size fits everybody kind of solution. There is no homogeneous, there is no single solution, just as in Abrahamics, for example. Do this, you will attain this, everybody. No. So, this being the case, it is important. The Dharma Shastra takes it upon itself to give a discourse, a detailed enunciation about different types of dharma that are applicable to different people. So I yesterday spoke about Samanya Dharma and Vishesha Dharma. So Samanya Dharma is the part which is common to everybody, and Vishesha Dharma is the tailor-made aspect. Why it is being giving this discourse? Because only when this this knowledge is imparted to people, and we have a socio-cultural vision wherein the society itself is oriented towards facilitating this spiritual journey, that everybody is able to attain that result in the form of happiness, if not in this life, in some life, but at least we'll be walking towards that. So this is the very essence, this is the very purpose of Dharma Shastra, is to enunciate human duties and enunciate a socio-cultural vision, a conceptual order of social-cultural order, which can facilitate such a such human duties, such human pursuit of overall well-being. Now we will continue this discussion with a little bit more deeper look into what this Vishesha Dharma is, but also briefly what Samanya Dharma is also. So let me just share my screen and we can then continue. Just give me a second. Is the screen visible to everybody?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
So the title of today's lecture, that's why, is Samanya Dharma and Vishesha Dharma, because we will be focusing on that and then tying up to the larger discussion that we have been having. So excuse me, very quickly I will repeat what we had discussed yesterday briefly. So what is this Samanya Dharma? Samanya means common to everybody, that which is universal. So they actually refer to universal ethical principles which are equally applicable to each and every person irrespective of time, place, gender, etc. Now, what are these ethical principles? So I have written an entire book on this titled Samanya Dharma. I'll show you the cover of the book at the end of the presentation. So this book basically collates all the teachings from various texts, from Itihasa, Puranas, Smritis, Vedas, everything about Samanya Dharma. But very briefly, what are these ethical tenets? They are ahimsa, that is not causing injury to other beings, except in exceptional conditions, such as, for example, when you fight a war for the sake of protecting your nation, or when you kill somebody or hurt somebody for self-defense, or when you do certain himsa in the context of a ritual as sanctioned by the Shastras themselves. So these are all exceptions. But the ideal value, the ideal goal is ahimsa, not doing injury to others, especially for any selfish reason. The next is satya, truthfulness in speech, truthfulness in action, truthfulness in thought. Asteya is non-stealing, not even thinking or desiring for objects or wealth or knowledge, whatever, that does not truly belong to one. Shaucha is purity, purity in the body, purity in the mind, purity in the speech, purity in the heart. Indriya Nigraha is sense control, control of your external sense organs, control of your mind. So external sense organs include your organs, speech, your perception, seeing, smelling, all these things, as well as organs of action. So it's complete control over yourself, your actions. Daya is compassion, bhakti is devotion. So there are many such lists. So Manusmriti lists 5 such tenets. Yajnavalkya Smriti adds some more. In the Bhagavad Puranam, at one place, at least around 33 tenets or so have been given as Samanya Dharma. So we won't go more detail into Samanya Dharma because each of these tenet can be enunciated for a lot of time. But the basic is that these are all common to everybody, and these are the very foundational principles for our life. Whether you believe in Hindu Dharma or not, these are the common principles that should guide all humanity, because only when you practice this, then you become eligible for higher practices such as Vishesha Dharma. And it is these practices, Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, which are the true cause of your Chitta Shuddhi, purification of the mind. And when you become eligible for Vishesha Dharma is also a working on reinforcing and reinforcing in some way and contextualizing these Samanya Dharma principles itself into your context. Now, most important aspect of this Samanya Dharma is simply this, that today we have a notion that ethics or ethical principles or living ethical life is an option. I mean, when it is convenient, I will act like Satyavadi Harishchandra. I will I will act like I'm on the side of the truth. But when it is convenient, we every day we take to falsehood, we take to dishonesty, we take to half truths, you could say. But when we say it is dharma, it means two things. One, it is obligatory. That is, it is not an option. It is obligatory. It is obligatory in the sense that if you don't do it, then there are real life consequences to it. What is that consequence? So if you are not practicing dharma, if you are violating dharma, then that means it is same as committing adharma. And committing adharma means it leads to papam, karmic demerit. It leads to dukkha, sorrow. It leads to naraka. It leads to more bondage to samsara. So these are real life consequences, not in a sense of whether you go to jail or not. That is a different type of real life consequence. If you are committing a great crime, then that comes to play. But even when small deviations from dharma will have karmic consequences. Now, then comes the Vishesha Dharma. I have been mentioning this again and again, and we will be looking at it in great detail. Basically, these are all duties and obligations and principles, actions that are suggested for a human person based on kala, that is time, place, varna, ashrama, and all these things. And we will just discuss this in more detail now. So these are tailor-made things. Now, there are two more concepts we have to keep in mind, that is Swadharma and Paradharma. Bhagavad Gita has a famous verse, Swadharmo Nidhanam Shreya. It is better to die while performing your Swadharma rather than performing Paradharma. Swadharma means our own Dharma. What is our path for our well-being? That is Swadharma. Paradharma is somebody else's path for his or her well-being. We may be good in performing dharma of somebody, say our friend. We may be bad in performing our own swadharma, but yet our swadharma have been given for us for our own progress and well-being. Just because we're good at something else, that does not mean that is suitable for us. And what is this swadharma? Basically, in practical terms, it is a combination of samanya dharma, the universal principles, and the vishesha dharma, that is applicable to our own situation, our own person, based on all these different factors that we will be discussing further. Paradharma is the dharma of another individual, which is again combination of samanya dharma and the vishesha dharma that of that individual. I hope you have this. This is clear that our swadharma is a combination of samanya dharma and vishesha dharma. And when we say it is so, what it means is it is the path through which we can attain our well-being. We can attain our well-being, because dharma by definition is that which is beneficial, that which imparts well-being when practiced, right? Abhyudaya nishreyasa. Now, moving further, while we just discussed how this samanya dharma is about universal ethical principles, and vishesha dharma is all about a tailor-made dharma for an individual. How does the Shastra initiate this, accomplishes this? So this is accomplished through placing an individual in his particular cosmological, temporal, social and ritualistic context and initiating dharma practice which are most beneficial to him or her. So what is happening when we speak about Vishesha Dharma? What the Shastra does is, Shastra first locates a person in his particular context. And when we speak about context, it's not just socio-cultural context. Yes, socio-cultural context is one, but there is also cosmological context. There's also a temporal, time-related context. There is ritualistic context. And when it is places one in all these contexts, locates that person, then it enunciates dharma based on all these contexts. So there is a location of dharma based on all these different considerations when we speak of Vishesha Dharma. So for example, if you take Manusmriti, it locates Dharma cosmologically, temporally, teleologically, functionally, and relationally. And we will be seeing all these headings very briefly. It's a very longer discussion. And there are talks by me available on YouTube. There are articles by me available. Also deals with all these things in great detail. But for now, let's briefly understand it. So first is we do the cosmological location. The first question the Dharma Shastras ask itself is, from a cosmological perspective, who is it for whom the Dharma is being initiated? Who are we? Who are we as a community? The Dharma Shastra is not concerned with just one community or one person. Who are we as a whole is that we are humans. We are Manushya. So Manusmriti opens a discussion by first enunciating the Srishti, the creation of the world, in which it lists various beings such as Devatas, Sadhyas, Pitrus, Yakshas, Rakshasas, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Asuras, Nagas, birds, animals, insects. And within this context, it also mentions humans. So cosmologically speaking, the dharma applicable to human, the Manushya dharma, that is what we speak of Samanya dharma for humans. It is being located as the dharma of one of the beings among many beings that exist in the universe. So at the very beginning, Manusmriti shifts the focus from a human-centric or anthropocentric discussion on dharma to a cosmocentric discussion, and this is very important. This placing of human duties in the very larger context of larger cosmology, wherein human duties are a small part of the larger discussion of duties of various organisms, is very important, because anthropocentrism, I don't know how many of you are aware of this academic term called anthropocentrism. Basically, it means human centric. What it is the current predominant narrative, especially rooted in Abrahamic worldview and the Western cultural worldview, wherein anthropocentrism is human as the center, human is the best person, we are the best, we are born to exploit nature, we are born to exploit all resources. So it is a belief in human exceptionalism based on human greed, selfishness, ego, etc. And it is from this narrative comes the narrative of human rights, human privileges, and all these things. So such anthropocentric narrative cannot accommodate dharmic discourse, because dharmic discourse is based on notions of dharma, based on notions of vrina, that is karmic debt. We all are born with a karmic debt to the rishis, to the devatas, to the pitrus, to other fellow human beings, to our parents. The notions such as moksha, swarga, all this cannot be accommodated in anthropocentric discourse, because these notions of dharma, rena, etc., by definition require selflessness. But anthropocentrism is by definition is selfish oriented. It is human oriented, human exceptionalism oriented. So now, prominent examples of this location of dharma cosmologically include, of course, Manushya dharma, Devata dharma, Rishi dharma, Brahmana dharma, Kshatriya dharma. All these are cosmological location. We don't have time. We have to rush further. The next comes locating dharma in a temporal manner. Temporal means a time-based location. And this is also very important, because only when you are able to locate yourself even in the time sense, then you are able to understand where you are placed. Now, we need to understand that the Hindu understanding of time is very different from the modern understanding. We do not subscribe to a linear progression of time. If we do not subscribe to a linear progression of the universe, that is a very Christian notion, that it all started with God creating the world and it will end eventually with the second coming of the Jesus, or whatever the judgment day. And the others, such as even Islam and others, also have a similar understanding of a linear time, and that has come to even modernity. Even the secular version of the world, the scientific version of the world, because we also speak about progress and development as always linear, as going forward. We start the story in the modern science with apes and primitive societies, which moving to modern, more technologically advanced, and technology is always forward looking. The Hindu view of time is cyclical. There will be always cycles of Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. There will be creation, there will be development, there will be growth, transformation, and then eventually decay and death, and then rebirth. So we have to understand where we are located in the cosmological sense from the time perspective. But time perspective also is not just in a cosmological sense, but even in our everyday sense. What day is it? What tithi is it? What nakshatra is it? So all this comes under that. That is why the Dharma Shastras give great importance to Jyotisha. When we have to perform a puja, when we do the festivals, when we celebrate these festivals, when you do certain yagyas, all of them we always check the time, because we have to locate ourselves on time. So the examples of dharma from a temporal perspective is Yuga Dharma. The dharma for Satya Yoga is different, Treta Yoga is different, Dwapara Yoga is different, Kali Yoga is different. The notion of Kali Varjya, that is certain practices of dharma which was dharma in previous yugas, but which are prohibited in Kali Yuga. So that is why this time context is important. Dharma during eclipse, for example, or dharma to be performed at particular times of the day or particular days in a year. So all these are examples of temporal discussion. See, if you remember, if when we do the sankalpam of any puja, we locate ourselves both cosmologically and temporally. We start with Bharata Varshe, Bharata Kande, right? Jambu Dvipe. Godavarya Nadi Tire, and all these things we say, and we also speak about which Manvantara it is, which Yuga it is, which year it is, right? So this is what it is: cosmological and temporal location. Teleological location. I think you might not be familiar with the terminology of teleology. Basically, teleology is about salvation or oriented towards spiritual liberation or spiritual goal. That is what teleology is. And we have already discussed this, that the purpose of practice of dharma is attaining moksha, abhyudaya, nishreyasa. In fact, what the Dharma Shastra authors say is that the primary dharma is Brahma Tattva, that is, attaining moksha is the primary dharma, that is taking sannyasa and practicing jnana sadhana and attaining moksha is the primary dharma. And as a subset of it, as a limb of it, is the worldly dharma, the pravritti dharma or the worldly dharma in the form of varnashrama dharma, in the form of putra dharma, pitra dharma, raja dharma, all this, the discussion of samanya dharma, vishesha dharma that we are having, they come under pravritti dharma or the worldly dharma. And this transactional dharma is a subset, is a limb of that larger true pursuit, which is pursuit of moksha. So this is the teleological orientation. That is, the Dharma Shastra locate the very practice of dharma in day-to-day life as a subset of pursuit of moksha. So naturally, it wants individual as well as the society to become moksha oriented, that we already mentioned. So the pursuit of varnashrama dharma, as I said, is leads to chitta shuddhi, which in turn leads to moksha. That is the teleological orientation of dharma. And this is very, very important, because all the discourse of Dharma Shastra in all contexts have this teleological, this moksha orientedness as the undercurrent. It may not mention it specifically, explicitly always. It may not be apparent at many times, but this is the real undercurrent. This is the real purpose of many of its messages, many of its teachings, which otherwise do not make sense if we do not take into account this factor. Or they may appear contradictory when you exclude this spiritual orientation of dharma as a factor. Now, these are very important. Now we have come from a very cosmological and temporal and teleological perspective, all very broad, abstract perspectives, to more practical aspects, that is locating dharma functionally and relationally. So you see a person, then you have to enunciate what is the dharma for him. So as I say Dharma Shastra locate that person in different contexts. So based on that context, the one of the principles of such context location is the functionality. So based on this functionality, there is Varna Dharma, there is Ashrama Dharma. We'll come to what Varna and Ashrama is shortly. Purusha Dharma, Dharma applicable to men. This is gender-based function. This is gender-based understanding of dharma. Purusha dharma and Stri dharma. For example, there are certain lifestyle practices the Dharma Shastras speak about in the context of pregnant women, in the context of monthly periods, in the context of after post childbirth, in the context of man-woman relationship, husband-wife relationship. The Stri dharma and Purusha dharma are slightly different. And similarly, there is Raja Dharma, Praja Dharma, duty of a government, the king and the government, and the duty of a citizen. Dharma of a guru, dharma of a shishya, dharma of parents, dharma of children. So all these are in a sense functional but also relation. We will see that the father-mother thing will come in the second half. So functional, Varna Dharma, Ashrama Dharma, Purusha Dharma, Stri Dharma, Raja Dharma, all these are there. Within the context of a, for example, corporate, you can speak about dharma of the boss, the dharma of a employee, right? So one of the important classification based on this functional is the Varna Dharma, that is Kshatriya, Vaishya, Brahmana, Shudra, all these categories. They are also functional in nature. Likewise, the ashramas are different stages. The stages of life are also functional in nature. A subset of this functionally locating dharma is, of course, relational dharma. That is how a person is related to others. What kind of relationship we have with other persons in the society. So two friends, they have friendship between them. So there are certain obligations, certain expectations, certain ethical behavior that are obligated upon these friends. Similarly, the roles of between husband and wife, between mother and father, or so that is between parents and children, how a son has to behave, how the duties of a daughter, of a son, of the husband, wife, teacher, student, all these are relational, functionally and relationally locating dharma. Now, we have very briefly covered the very broad landscape of Dharma Shastra discourse. And actually, we have not looked at the actual tenets of any of this because there is no time. And it will take a longer course to do that. And but here, the point is to have a broad idea. So all this functionally, relationally, cosmologically, teleologically, we locate dharma. That is how the Vishesha Dharma discourse is given. However, how the Dharma Shastra phrased this discussion is that all these different Vishesha Dharmas, they put it as a subset of the larger Varnashrama Dharma. So all these tailor-made teachings are given within the larger context of two important definitions and designations, which are Varna and Ashrama. And it is this category of Varna Ashrama, specifically Varna, because Ashrama is a subset of Varna Dharma itself. Ashrama Dharma is also a subset of Varna Dharma itself. So this Varna Ashrama or Varna is the core category based on which the Dharma Shastra builds its socio-cultural vision. Its conceptual vision for a ideal moksha-oriented social order. So what is this Varna? We have to understand, because this is again a very controversial topic, but we won't be seeing it much detail. Just one or two more slides I have. Varna and Ashrama, as the title says, are ritual categories. Now, in the current discourse, if you read the academic work, non-academic work, you will see what is Varna. It is called, it is caste. It is translated as popularly as caste or jati, that is, or as class, a grouping. It is sometimes said it is a classification based on occupation. Different people in society are doing different occupation. Those who are in knowledge related occupations are Brahmanas, those who are governance related occupations are Kshatriyas, those who are in service related occupations are Shudras, those who are in business are Vaishyas. Some say it is a behavioral trait. There are certain traits that text such as Gita mentions, and if you have those traits, guna, then you belong to that varna. See, all this narrative is there. Varna is definitely all of them. It has an element of jati. It is definitely jati, that is birth based. It is a grouping as well. It is occupation based. It is also behavioral trait. So janma, guna, karma, all are elements in them. All are integrated within the idea of varna. But varna cannot be reduced to any one of these elements. It is not just a notion of jati, it is not just a notion of class, it is not just an occupation, it is not just a behavioral trait. It is much more than that. What is that much more? Varna is essentially, Varna again is like dharma, Varna is a Shastriya concept. So this discourse is purely based on Shastra, not on sociology. See, what is happening when we read or study Shastra, we often read it from historical or sociological perspective. So that kind of problematic, because that misses the forest for the tree. that does not understand the concept at all, because you're already biased, you're already, the pot is full, you're coming from a certain perspective, you're not able to understand what the shastra say, because varna is a shastriya concept. Shastra alone is the proper means to understand what varna is. The everything else, what is happening today in the political scenario, social scenario, all this does not matter. All this we can analyze later once we understand what the Shastra is saying. So, what is the Shastriya definition of Varna? It is that Varna is essentially a ritual category. A very, very important understanding. It's a ritual category. It is a reference to a ritual condition, a ritual state, a ritual status of a person. Status not in the sense of negative sense, status in the sense of condition, a state, a natural condition, as you say, a ritual condition of a person. And based on this ritual condition or ritual state, that person's ritualistic function in society is conceived. What is it that and this is 4 in number, that is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. And there is a 5th category of those people who do not fall into any of these 4 categories. The Manusmriti calls such that category as Antar Prabhava. We will not go into that. Again, it's a very big discussion. But what is this ritual category? What is this called as ritual action, ritual function? Dharma itself is the ritual function. Shankaracharya notes this in his Bhashya very, very clearly. And we get this notion of Varna as a ritual category from the Veda itself, from the very Samhitas, such as from the Purusha Sukta, from the Jaiminiya Brahmana, from the Taitiriya Samhita, from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is very, very clear. And Shankaracharya's commentary on that is even more clear. So, Dharma itself is ritual, because what is Dharma? Dharma is a yajna. What is yajna? Yajna is ritual, right? Yajna is the archetype of all rituals. And Dharma is explicitly connected, explicitly noted as a yajna. And what is the fruit, phala of this ritual called Dharma? It is abhyudaya nishresa. Punya, sukha, swarga, moksha, right? It is this, for the performance of Dharma, as I mentioned, Dharma, which is a ritualistic action. It is not just a secular action, it is a ritualistic action which leads to moksha, which leads to punya, swarga, moksha. So, for this ritualistic action called Dharma, as I mentioned, it is not same for everybody. There is no one size fits everybody. So, everybody is different. So, how are they different? This difference is caused by their difference in their ritual states, in their ritual condition that they inherit from their birth, that they inherit from their purva janma karma, previous actions performed in their previous lives. This is again a statement from the Upanishads, Chandogya Upanishad. So, in order to, what is the point of all this is basically simply this. A dharma-based social vision or a social order can only be a ritualistic social order, because dharma itself is a ritual. So, dharma-based social vision, social-cultural vision or social order has to be a ritualistic social order whose purpose, whose purpose or the aim is to facilitate each member of the society to attain these ritualistic goals, these spiritual goals, namely Abhyudaya Nishreyasa. And this is what the Dharma Shastra is enunciating. So, Dharma Shastra does this through enunciation or the conceptualization of a category of called Varna, which is a designation for ritual state of a person. And then based on that ritual state of a person, it enunciates different ritualistic dharmic duties that naturally flow from that ritual state of that person, which is what suitable for the person having that ritual state. So there is an enunciation of Brahmana Dharma for the person who has a ritual Varna state called Brahmana. There is a Kshatriya Dharma, Vaishya Dharma, Shudra Dharma, Antar Prabhava Dharma, that is those who are outside of these four varnas, all suitable, all those paths which are beneficial to those people with having those particular ritual states. And within this varna also comes ashramas, which is a reference to different stages of life, whether you are in brahmacharya, student, whether you are grihastha, householder, whether you are a forest dweller, that is in the modern sense a retired person, or whether you are a sannyasi or a renunciate. Based on this also ritualistic duties changes. So this is a very, very important understanding that a Dharma Shastric vision of a social order is not a materialistic social order. It is not a social order which focuses only on Arthakama. All the sociological modern academic analysis of Varnashrama are misleading because they are completely missing this ritualistic aspect of Varna Dharma. They merely see it as uh, an enunciation for social power, of exploitation, of many other things. Because they are missing this ritualistic, this spiritual aspect, this dharmic aspect, this yagika aspect of Dharma Shastriya socio-cultural vision. To summarize, the Dharma Shastras present a socio-cultural vision. Again, I am reiterating what I just mentioned, summarizing. Socio-cultural vision which is ritualistic in nature and has for its stated purpose the facilitation of each individual in the society to attain overall well-being constituting of material happiness, heaven, purification of the mind, and final liberation, moksha. The core principles of this ritualistic socio-cultural order or this vision of socio-cultural order are varna and ashrama, both being designations denoting a person's ritual state, ritual condition. The practice of Samanya Dharma and Vishesha Dharma constitutes the central human actions that facilitate both individual and spiritual progress and socio-cultural well-being of the society as a whole. And we may go a step further and say the very project of Dharma Shastras is to ritualize the entire society. If you remove Dharma Shastras, if you remove the Veda, the Smriti, the Itihasa, the Puranas from the picture, what you are left with is mere human society which is pursuing Artha and Kama. That's it. If you remove the two Purusharthas of Moksha and Dharma from the picture, then it is just that everybody is living YOLO, what we say, you only live once. Let me hoard things, let me fulfill all my desires recklessly without consequences. And such a society will eventually move into nihilism, into chaos, into loss of meaning, into suffering. We are already seeing such breakdown of society, etc., in the West, which is a Artha Kama Pradhana society. The only way to prevent that is to make the society Dharma Pradhana society, a moksha oriented society. So with this, I conclude the discussion, and before opening to questions, I just want to share these slides. These are the 3 books I have authored. I mean, I have authored more than 5 books, but these are the 3 important books I thought it would be interesting to the audience, the young audience here. The first book here is the Samanya Dharma. Again, all these books are available on Amazon. The Samanya Dharma is a very short booklet, I think 100 pages or something. Very short booklets which enunciates the ethical tenets that we could not discuss in detail, but I just merely mentioned it. Please read it. It's a must read for everybody. I suggest you buy it, read it, and share it with your friends. And it's a short book. I think it's priced at 100 rupees or something. Everybody can afford it. The second one is Ishopanishad. It's a commentary on one of the shortest Upanishads, but it is very helpful in understanding the roadmap, the spiritual roadmap of our spiritual journey. The roadmap that I mentioned in one of the slides yesterday, it is based on the teachings of the Upanishad. And I'm sure if you are spiritual oriented, if you want to know Sanatana Dharma better, then this Ishopanishad is very, very useful. The third is menstruation across cultures. This is a very deep study into specifically the menstruation practices. What are the Hindu notions? What are the Hindu practices? Why they are? There is a Ayurvedic perspective, there is a yoga perspective, there is Dharma Shastra perspective. It answers questions such as why during periods women don't are not supposed to go to temple, why they should take rest, why they should what are the rationale behind all this hormones, especially suggest young women to read it, but also young men should read it because then they can appreciate the thing and support family members. So these are the three books, and these are all available on Amazon. And I would also like to add, I will share the link in the chat box shortly. I'll be conducting a very detailed course on Dharma Shastra. It is a 30 weeks course, that is around 4 months, 5 months, one session each day, each week of 90 minutes. This is being organized by Indica, the organization I'm working for, Indic Academy. And it starts from January 3rd, I think. Yeah, if I am not wrong, it starts on January 3rd, every Wednesday evenings, 6 to 7:30 or something. So I'll share the registration link. If anybody wants to join it, join me in discussing and exploring Dharma Shastra in much more detail. Many of the concepts we discussed in the last 3 days will be elaborated, will be discussed in greater detail, and there you can have more conversations and everything. So I suggest, I encourage them to join the course. I'll be sharing the link in the chat box, and now any questions if you have, we can discuss, I think, for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
ధన్యవాదములండి నితిన్ గారు. సో very comprehensively you have compressed the whole Dharma Shastra into 3.5 hours. Though it is very difficult, I think you must have done quite a bit of work on this. Special work for us. So we especially thank you for taking out your busy time and doing this for us at my request. And anybody wants to ask any question, we are now, today is the final day for Nithin ji to be with us, so you can ask any question.
I have just shared the link in the comment box. If anybody wants to check it out, they can. Please do ask questions. I'll be happy to answer.
Okay. Anybody? Raise your hand.
Mahodaya, after the students, I want to ask a question.
Yeah, any student?
I think I see somebody raising the hand.
Pantul garu.
Sir, this is only after students, sir. If no students are coming, then I will ask.
Okay, meanwhile you start. Let us see if some student comes.
Right, sir. Thank you very much. Sir, Namaste, Guru Garu, Sridhar Garu. You have given a very beautiful lecture on this very comprehensively about Dharma. See, Dharma is a vast subject, and this adaptability is depend on the individual's role play in the society. Am I right, sir?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. To meet this role play, some deviations in practice may occur. Deviation practice of Dharma may occur. For example, as long as the student in the student life, to meet the competitions, they have to make hard work, of course. Then they may develop some enmity among the students. So developing enmity is the deviation from the practicing of Dharma. Like that, to get the benefit of reservations and scholarships, they may deviate certain rules. And as a parents, for betterment of children, they have to, or they may show some partiality in the society. So while doing so, there may be deviations in the Dharma. In such a case, is it possibility to get the moksha?
Very interesting question. See, moksha is not a one-day game. It's a game of very, very many lives. The reason why it is not a one-day game is because we do not have all the factors that will be make it possible to attain moksha in this life. Theoretically, it is possible to attain moksha in this life itself. That is how the Jivan Muktas are, right? But to have that, we have to develop all these qualities. And it will take many lives to develop all these qualities because of the challenges you just mentioned. Because the Dharma Shastra speaks about how the things are, the karma and karma phala relationship, and that is absolute. But when we consider about how dharma has to be practiced in our own life, then we have to negotiate between dharma, artha, and kama. And even the Shastras say that it is always better to balance all three of them. Always it is better to practice all three of them, balance them. Because only then we will be able to lead a fulfilling life. And balancing means sometimes the deviations happen. So our purpose is it is not that it is not possible to completely remove the deviation or violations of dharma. We have to strive to minimize the violations of dharma and try to do as much as dharma as possible. So that is the only thing in our hand. And it also matters. For example, Kali Yuga that we are living in is by definition the bull of dharma stands on only one leg. The other three legs are already taken away by adharma. So it is not possible to practice dharma in 100%. But what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita is practicing dharma even swalpa, little, keeps away you from great fear. That is, it is also very, very fruitful. So we should not be concerned about whether the society is allowing us to do this or not and all the life situation. We have to try our best to do it. I mean, one example is people say that they don't have time to do Devata Upasana even for 5 minutes. See, that is not true. No matter how busy you are, how you may be getting up at 5 in the morning and going to your office or coming back at 11, you will have, don't we have time to have breakfast, lunch and dinner? Don't we have time to go out with friends or something? So we can definitely make time to do some 5-minute puja. There is Manasika puja, you can sit while you're traveling to your office in the bus or something. You can close your eyes and do that Manasika puja, japa, or stotapa. There are 100 ways. The reason we don't do it is alasya, that is laziness, or nastikatva, we don't believe in it. So you see, Dharma Shastra, while it gives absolute principles, it also is very compassionate and very understanding of human situation. It says, look, this is the ideal, but there are exceptions to this. If you are not able to do this ideal, you can at least do the gauna. That is a secondary thing whose result may not be as good as the ideal, but still it is on the right path. Say one example I would give is that the Acharya, the great, our Acharya's quote is that the rishis and our elders, they say it is ideal to perform 1,000 Gayatri every day, 3 times a day for doing Sandhya Vandana. But if it's not possible, at least do 100 Sandhya Vandana. If it's not possible, at least do 32 or 40 Sandhya Vandana. So that is, you cannot say you do not have time at all to Sandhya Vandana. At least do 1 time Sandhya Vandana, if not 3 times. Right? It is better. Something is better than nothing. So this is how we have to think. This does not mean that it is a license to commit adharma. It is merely an understanding of the real life difficulties that we all face. The Shastra is compassionate, but we have to understand the dharma is for our own benefit. It is not that something that is being imposed upon us and something that if we don't do it, we'll be legally penalized or something like that. Only certain criminal acts will be legally penalized, which is also adharma. But otherwise, the achara and prayaschitta teachings of the Dharma Shastra, they're all about our personal individual practice, our ritualistic practice, how we live our life, our ethical living. So this is for our own benefit. Once we understand that it is our own benefit, we will try our best. Like Bhagavan Sri Rama, He's called the Vigrahavan Dharma. He is the Murti, the very personification of Dharma. Why? Because no matter did he not have problems in his life, he had greater problems than us, but still he never deviated from Dharma. We can at least try to emulate him. It's not possible to do 100%, I understand, but we should try. I hope this answers.
Thank you very much, sir, for your clarity. There may be some, as you said, 100% may not perform Dharma. To the extent possible, we can follow Dharma.
Yes. Yatha Shakti.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Guru Garu.
Mahodaya, may I ask the question?
Yes, please go ahead.
There is Varna Sankarha. Like by profession itself, all of us are doing what most of us are doing what we were not supposed to be doing or what was not designated for us. So what happens in that case? What is the dharma in that case? What is the dharma of that person? Like, let's say I am a Kshatriya, but I am doing a Vaishya's job. So what am I supposed to follow, both the Vaishyas and the Kshatriyas? Or what is it for me now in that?
Okay. Wonderful
Or if I'm
question.
a Brahmana and same,
Yes,
any Varna.
Yes. Wonderful question. See, as I mentioned, Varna is not just about profession. The kind of occupation is, after all, part of the kind of actions we do, right? So it's part of our conduct in life. So it is one of the elements, not the only element or not the major element. It's one of the important elements, definitely. So yes, today we are Kali Yuga by definition is a Apad Dharma. So what is this Apad Dharma? The feature of this Apad Dharma means emergency condition or condition which is not normal, abnormal condition. The feature of this Apad Dharma is that there is Varna Shankara. What this Varna Shankara means actually is that, again, coming back to ritual state of a person. It is not simply about jobs or other things, but the ritual state of a person. So, if you are, for example, born in a, say, Kshatriya family, you have already inherited the Kshatriya ritual state. You may be doing some other job because of Apad Dharma conditions, but ritualistically you could continue to do your Kshatriya duties. For example, if you are a boy, if you are a male member, you have to have that Upanayana, you have to do that Sandhya Vandana, everything. Many Kshatriyas and Vaishyas they don't have Upanayana at all, or they have it just a day before marriage, and they don't practice any of the rituals, right? That has to be instituted. It does not matter what job you are doing, because that is Apad Dharma, because that is the nature of the society we are living in currently. The current contemporary society do not subscribe to the Dharma Shastriya or the Hindu Shastriya vision of socio-cultural vision, wherein each individual has to work towards Nishrayasa. That's fine at a social political level. That is not there, fine. But at the individual level, we still want moksha, right? No, nobody says I don't want moksha. If we are saying that I don't subscribe to moksha, I don't subscribe to a belief in a conviction in swarga, punya, etc., then we are not a Hindu.
Yeah,
it's
fine.
as simple as that. So as long as we subscribe to it, then that means that we want it. We believe in our devatas. Now, so we have to do what is possible. The second aspect to the question about is the category of Antar Prabhava or Varna Shankara itself. What is their dharma? So the Dharma Shastra, such as Manu, already gives the answers to it. Their Vishesha Dharma is Samanya Dharma itself. You practice Samanya Dharma in all aspects of life. And what is the spiritual path for them? Bhakti. Bhakti is also a form of Samanya Dharma. And this is a very, very powerful idea that Bhakti is available to everybody, because what it means is, though you are not eligible for Shrauta Smarta Karmas, that is the Shruti based, Veda based Yagyas or the Smriti based Samskaras in such certain things, you are eligible for Pauranika practices, the Purana based, for example, the Ganesh Chaturthi, the Ganapati festival we do, the Vrata, the Varasiddhi Vinayaka Vrata is a Pauranika Vrata, it's for everybody. That is the mainstream practices that we are currently living, right? We do Ekadashi Vrata, we do the Ganapati Vrata, we do the many different Vratas, many festivals, many pujas. There is Agamika system, there is Tantrika system, there is Shaiva, Shakta, Ganapatya. You can take Mantra Diksha in all the systems and practice. You can read the Stotras and Parayana, do Parayana from all these Puranas. See, all the spiritual paths are open. There are mantras that are open. For example, there is Panchakshari mantra, which is a Vedic mantra, Namah Shivaya. But the greatness of that mantra is it can be chanted by anybody and everybody. No restriction. You don't need even Diksha at all. Generally for mantras, Diksha is needed. But for this Namah Shivaya, Diksha is not needed. Similarly for Nama mantras of Devatas, it's open for everybody. No Diksha needed. Ramanama, it is the greatest Taraka mantra, right? So the point is Samanya Dharma is the Vishesha Dharma. You practice Samanya Dharma in all aspects of your life, and for the spiritual perspective also is taken care of through bhakti, through all these different paddhatis, non Shauta Smarta paddhatis, be it Tantra Marga, be it Agamika, be it Pauranika, all are there. So nobody is
Excluded.
excluded from moksha. Nobody is excluded from pursuit of moksha. Nobody is excluded from pursuit of dharma. The path is different. Why is that path different? Because the different path is based on individual competences, individual status, individual states. Status itself is a controversial term. Individual spiritual states based on individual gunas, based on individual behavioral traits, their tendencies, their mental tendencies, their karmic tendencies, so many things, where they are situated in their journey, spiritual journey. So based on all these multiple factors, the paths are different. But nobody is excluded from ultimate goal of moksha. Nobody is excluded from swarga. Nobody is excluded from punya. Nobody is excluded from sukha. Nobody is excluded from dharma. It is for everybody. And nobody is excluded from Devata Upasana. I think I want to stress here that Devata Upasana is the most important aspect. We have to connect with our Devatas, our Grama Devatas, our Kula Devatas, our Ishta Devatas. We have to engage with them. We have to do Upasana to them every day. However smaller, limited format it could be, it has to be done. Because only when the Devatas manifest in our life, then we become Dhanya. Then even the Swarga Moksha will automatically come.
And Pitrus also, no, Mahodaya. We should also do
Yes,
Pitru
yes.
Karmas.
Pitru karmas are also very important. The Shada karmas, the Tarpanas, going to these different places. Because Pitru karmas, they are, if
Antyeshti.
yes, and the Pitrus, if they are, in many of the charts, there is a lot of blocking karmas because of Pitru doshas. So Pitru Tripti is very important. So the Dharma Shastra says Pancha Mahayagya, it speaks of Pancha Mahayagya, which is common for everybody. Again, a Samanya Dharma this is. That is, everybody can practice and should practice. And this is about the rinas that we inherit. What are they? There is a Rishi Rina. By studying Shastras, we engaging with the Shastras, we pay this debt. That is one yagya. There is Pitri yagya, that is doing Shraddhas, Tarpanas and all these things. And also having children. That is very important for Pitru. Having children. And Devata yagya, that is Puja, Devata Upasana and all these things will come. And Bhuta yagya, through which, feeding the cows, feeding the dogs, feeding ants, all these things will come. So we have this Pancharina and the guests, Atiti.
Atiti.
Yes. So these are all Samanya Dharma. You see, our Dharma is most beautiful. Samanya Dharma, pretty much everything that is most needed, most essential, is open for everybody. These are specialized things that are in addition to that is only for few people, because the fact is everybody cannot do everything. For example, take the practice of ahimsa. Take the practice of vegetarianism, very small part of ahimsa. The Manusmriti says eating meat is natural to human. but abstaining from it is equivalent to 100 Ashwamedha Yajna. So abstaining is the goal, but it recognizes that not everybody can practice it in their current condition. You have to slowly work towards it. How does the society has evolved mechanisms to work towards it? You see, many communities which eat meat, they avoid it particular
On
days
some
of the
days.
week. Particular days. In different communities, different. Some places they don't eat during Tuesday and Friday. Some don't eat on Friday and Tuesday, Saturday. Different communities, different locations, it's different. But there are also communities which eat every day also. That's fine. So we have to, the Dharma Shastra is also pragmatic. It recognizes that everybody, people are at different level of spiritual journey. And it also says, when you eat meat, you offer it to Devata and then eat. Then the negative effects will be reduced. The papam associated with meat eating will be removed if you offer it to Devata. It is too interesting that meat eating is not prohibited even for Brahmanas in the Shastras, in the Dharma Shastras. Certain meats are prohibited, not everybody, everything, but vegetarianism is said as higher goal, especially for the Brahmanas. So this is the reason why there is a diversity of teachings based on the ritual state of, based on the spiritual state of different people. Such a diversity of teachings are there.
Dhanyavad Mahodaya.
Then, thank you.
Thank you so much, Nithin ji. Thank you for conducting these 3 classes. We'll look forward some more interaction going forward.
Definitely. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. And now go for Pradhana, Atidhi.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadra.
Ma kaschit duk bhava bhagat koi. Om
Shantihi Swasti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Okay. Let's go for Janaganamana.
जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे जय हिंद जय हिंद.
Okay. Thank you, Aditi.
Dhanyavad Guruji.